just for food for thought, maybe you have some ideas after seeing this presentation. We're not past the age of 60, well, I'm assuming most of us aren't. How do you feel about becoming or coming of age to that extent? Does anyone have any ideas of what they would like to express and how we view in this room, how we view coming of age?
Well, it's not completely what you just said, but I think, well, you mentioned your diary. I think one part of aging is that when you look back at your life and you're satisfied and you don't have regret, that is, I think, a very desirable state to reach. So that's also my question to you. When you review your life, are you satisfied with your choices, or did you come to a point where you say, okay, this I could have done this different?
My wife's there. We married only 8 years ago. That was a very, very good decision. After having been friends for 40 years, it was a very good decision 8 years ago to marry. This is a little bit when Harry and I tell his story. And we're still today very, very happy with that. But let me say that when I say looking back on your life and watching those long lines, I do realize that there are other people who see images that are not so nice. This is, Robert Elias, when he was looking back on his life, and he was drawing these beautiful long lines between his birth in Breslau until the day we spoke with him. There was an episode in his life that was absolutely horrible, and that was, of course, his parents were killed in Nazi Germany. So that's also, and in every life, I'm happy to say that in my life, it is not such a horrible thing. But in every life, there are also less pleasurable elements. So that's something that you take into account when you're looking back on everything that you've done so far. And the rest of your question, let me say, I'm pretty content that this is not a consciousness raising meeting, so on the rest I don't know.
Does anyone have any questions specifically?
Do you think if people in general have a different attitude towards family, that they can come up with different solutions, or maybe the debate about living with so much elderly and so little working people, would they be different?
It's a very interesting question. The way we interpret and the way we frame old age is different between different generations. It's different between social classes. It's different between religious groups. It's different between ethnic groups. I was mentioning, I thought, sometimes we say, don't add the ethnic background, but I thought it was nice to mention that the guy who got it for me in the tram was a Moroccan guy. And not only because I wanted to say something against this stigmatizing idea, but also maybe it was not a coincidence with the Moroccan guy. Because sometimes in certain immigrants, or definitely people are very surprised by the way we treat our elders, that we try to shut them away in a home to be retired. Young people don't want to care for their own parents, and we're surprised about the Dutch traditions in that respect. So, and this whole idea that the beauty of Asterix, the idea of the wisdom of the elderly, that is something that in our culture we have tendency to laugh about. Those old people, come on, because we live really in a youth-oriented, youth-centered culture. But that's very different from one society to the other. So there are absolutely very important differences there. And maybe there is something that we can learn from more traditional societies, more agrarian societies. This thing was good.
You also have a question?
Yeah, it was related to that, but I think it's quite scary that in our society there is no place, there is no place for elderly people. We put them away in institutions problem how you perceive other people to create, how do you say, a place within society.
Yeah, that is what I wanted to say when I said that maybe it has something to do with the civilizing process. That in everyday life we expect one another to behave in a certain way, and when the elderly people are a bit different from those expectations, for example, they don't work anymore, or they have all kinds of characteristics that we do not associate with a healthy life, a good life as we define it. And I mentioned sexuality there too. It also, so much of a sexuality-centered society, the idea that there are people who are doing it less, that even that fact alone is something, you can't take them very seriously anymore. They don't really follow the prescriptions for healthy adult people. So they may become a little bit embarrassing, maybe even a little bit shameful to be seen in their company, and then the logical next step is to put them away, to them what Irving Kaufman would call to bring them into the backstage, where you aren't confronted with them on a daily basis. And this is one of the most horrible things that could happen. But there are other tendencies in our society. We try. This is the positive side of what I talked about when I used the Dutch word zelfredzaamheid. There is a positive element to it, where people say we should help the elderly to stay as long as they can in their own house, for example, and to lead the lives they led in the past. So the 60s was the period of the retirement houses. We have come back a little bit from that ideology. So this is not very clear cut, but there is a very, very important danger.
Yeah, it is a difference from here in the Netherlands and in Sweden, where I come from.
Yes.
Because old people, there is nothing like you can stay at home. There's no help for there is help, but not really for old people.
Okay.
So it is a bit different tendency, I think.
Yeah.
It's very strong that you go to a house, you stay there, you don't have a contact with the outside world.
Yes.
So,
would you say that caring for your own parents when they are in need of help is even less common in Sweden than in the Netherlands?
I would say so, yes.
Okay.
Which is quite scary.
Yeah. So you have sort of feeling that the Swedes have gone even already a little bit further on that road that we also might go into. Interesting.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Upon reviewing your collection of diaries with timeline,
yes.
Did you notice, for example, when an incident occurred on one day that affected then the choices or the scenarios that you found yourself in afterwards? Did you explicitly notice the learning process in your diary?
That is what that is the fun of rereading them. That is absolutely the fun of rereading them. Trying to find those moments, and sometimes they only receive their true meaning in retrospect. So rereading them now, you think, that was the moment when, etc. But very often it's only with the wisdom of hindsight that you can see it. For example, there is even one date that I found was very important in my life, and I noted it in my diary. But when I wrote it down, I forgot about it. And it's only some 5 years ago that I came across it, rereading it, and I thought, that was that moment. And that was in January 1970. The date is in my diary, so I don't know. I didn't learn it by heart, It was in January 1970, and there was this professor in Amsterdam University who gave a lecture on Emile Durkheim, and I had, unlike some